Hello, I'm Dan Liggett, the editor at the Wilmington News Journal, and I'm here today with Pat Haley. Mr. Haley is a candidate for County Commissioner in the Republican primary on May 4. Welcome, Pat, for coming in today.
Dan, my pleasure. It's always a pleasure to be with you. Thank you.
You bet. Pat, our first question is, given the crisis facing the local economy, what can and should the county commissioners do to generate jobs and renewed economic activity?
You know, we've been hit with a double whammy in Clinton County, Dan. The federal economy, it certainly went south about the same time that we had our local problems with DHL leaving, and had such a wide impact. Almost every family in Clinton County has been touched, either by a relative or a friend or someone they know. And it's a very complicated set of circumstances right now, because there's many communities in the United States that are trying to bring new industry into their communities. And so from my standpoint, I've been traveling the county now for the last couple months since I declared my candidacy. I've listened to a lot of people and I've talked to a lot of people. And one of the things that I have heard and that I've seen is that the process is a little bit disjointed, that there's sometimes a communications issue between some of the different entities in government, in the local government. And I think I equate it to an infrastructure. And for us to bring industry here, we need to pay attention to that infrastructure. We need to make sure that our zoning is where it should be. We need to also look at our tax base, because one of the things that a business will look at if they're entertaining thoughts about coming into a community is going to be the tax rate. They're going to pick the lowest tax rate simply for common sense reasons. I feel like the extension of this 0.5% sales tax has been discussed, should not be enacted. I believe that if we're unable to balance the budget, we have to reduce spending. And so from that standpoint, those are things that help generate business. Also, quality of life. We talk about the library, we talk about the Y. We want to make the entire community as attractive as we can for a business to come and locate here in Wilmington and Clinton County. Not just at the air park, but certainly we want to attract businesses to Blanchester. We want to attract businesses to Sabina and Martinsville and some of the other towns. And one person can make a difference. They can set a tone. I think it's important. I have a business background. I was president of a company. I know CEOs. I know how CEOs negotiate. I feel comfortable talking to those individuals. And so much of it that we have to offer as far as the workforce, the location is very important. They're building the bypass. We look for development around that bypass, and we need to make sure, again, that our infrastructure is in place to make it just as attractive as possible to any potential businesses that may want to come and work here and be neighbors to us.
Okay, and from the perspective of the county budget and the fiscal health of the county, what can the county commissioners do to retain necessary services while relieving that tax burden on the local residents?
It's almost a catch-22, because it is difficult. There's only so much money coming in. And the people, not only in Clinton County, but in the state of Ohio and really nationally, are just taxed to the point of no return. We pay an awful lot of tax. The expenses keep going up. Locally, we're going to have to take a hard look at balancing that budget. And if a decision needs to be made, and I am elected to balance the budget as far as raising taxes versus cutting government spending, I'm going to opt to cut spending to balance the budget. I feel that that is something that we need to do, and it's not easy to do. No one wants to have their budgets cut, and no one wants to cut a budget. But it's the same principle that we use in our own home. If our income goes down, then we maybe don't eat out quite as often, or we don't go to the movies, or we don't buy certain things. And I think the same thing applies to county government, state government, all across the board. So my approach is going to be a conservative approach from that standpoint. One of the things that I think sometimes is overlooked, even 0.5% of a sales tax, that can determine whether a company would stay in business. It could determine whether or not a person does buy certain things for children, for school, and in a year's time we pay an awful lot of money in sales tax. So from that standpoint, whether it's a new tax or an extension, whatever the politicians want to call it, the truth of the matter is we're going to pay more if the extension of that sales tax is extended. So my position would be that we would cut the spending to balance that budget. Hopefully we'll have enough income, but at this point it doesn't appear that that's going to be the case because the tax rate is, or the tax flow is much lower than it was here a few years ago when everything was working well.
Well, thank you very much for coming in today.
Thank you, Dan. It's my pleasure.
Appreciate that very much.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Good to see you.